what I want to share today is the topic of defining your ideal client. So in a lot of the energy that I'm having conversations with retailers, it's, there's pivots and changes that are happening in how people shop, where people shop. I mean, in any industry, it's adapting and changing, right? Well, I think more than ever, while we're adapting and we're changing, I think it's going to be really, really important that you get this one thing right, and that is identifying your ideal customer. And so I was on an hour call with a client today about that thing, and I think I wanted to share because I think it's really, really valuable that everybody sort of reevaluate your business and kind of where you are and who your ideal client is. Here's the thing, normally when I ask retailers, who's their ideal client? I'm like, well, it's everybody, ages like 18 to 65, people who love fashion or gifts or organic products, furniture, whatever it is that you sell, right? And they have disposable income. Well, that's not actually a clearly defined customer. That is kind of saying you sell to everybody, which may be true. It may be true that you've had people from the ages of 18 to 65 and everything in between, right? That you've had them shop with you, but we're talking about how do you narrow down your ideal customer, because that narrowing down is going to define everything that you do. It's going to define what merchandise you purchase. It's going to define what types of people or sizes or looks or ethnicities, depending on your business, that you put on your social media. It's going to affect everything you do. So if we're saying we're all things to all people, I actually think that we're missing a huge opportunity to narrow in on our niche. So what does that look like? Or how does that affect you negatively? This is a reason why, if you don't have a clear and identifiable client, and I'll go into some ways to identify that. If you don't have that, here's what's going to happen. Maybe you're a women's clothing store and you hear a lot of customers say, I would like more petite sizes for shorter people. Or maybe you're a boutique store and or maybe you're a gift store and you hear from your customers, oh, I wish you carried some kids' clothes. Or maybe you're a women's clothing store and you hear, oh, I wish I could buy stuff for my husband with these brands or whatever, right? What happens as retailers is we take all this feedback and we feel like we need to respond and immediately react to that. So we're like, well, we should carry kids' clothes. Well, we should do this. Well, we could expand this. So then we start to try a bunch of little things, and we start to be all things to all people. We start to allocate some budget and product purchasing to these things that aren't really our ideal client, because we're trying to be all things to all people. And it could be sizes. I've seen this actually happen too, where I worked with a retailer and they carried so many sizes and multiple units, and so they were buying very deep but not very wide. And I was like, well, why is it that you feel like you have to have that? And they're like, well, we don't want anybody to come in here and ever think that we don't have that one thing for them. Well, guess what? You're going to run out of sizes eventually. So we really have to identify what sizes are selling, what demographic are we targeting, what product is responding with that ideal client. We have to get this so narrowed down more than ever right now. Retailers, I'm speaking to you, more than ever right now. We need to nail this down and have this so clearly defined. Now, by defining it, does it mean that people who are in your demographic won't shop with you? No, but it's going to help us make smarter business decisions as we pivot and adjust in the economy, just like any business, okay? So another example is for marketing. Let's just say you're marketing of why, if you don't have a clear defined market. Facebook does not market to the elderly, right? You don't see Facebook putting printed ads in a newspaper. It's not their demographic. So, and you don't also see them really targeting young kids. Young kids are on TikTok and all these other apps that I can't understand that my nephews and my nieces use. But they're gonna target their particular market, okay? So every business is doing this, but as local businesses, I tend to see them, local business owners feel like they need to be all things to all people, or that because everybody of all ages shops, that's their demographic. So I wanna give you a few pointers. And the first one would be try to keep your target market within a decade. I know that seems like not that much, but from 20 years old to from 20 years old to 30 years old is an entire different, say your clothing is an entire different demographic. What I was wearing at 20 is different than what I was wearing at 30, right? Does it mean I can't have some things that a 20-year-old might love? No, that's not what that means. It just is trying to define the market a little bit more. If you go, well, I'm 20 to 40, I just think that that's such a big demographic with different income statuses, with, I mean, just a lot of different things. By the time they're, maybe your women's clothing store, I'm just gonna use that as an example. By the time they're 40, maybe they've had some kids. So like that changes how we dress and what we do. We tend to look for more practical things, right? Than the crop tops and things that you're seeing right now. So that's gonna change the product selection that you have. And that's just an example. What happens when we tend to be all things to all people? We've lost sight of our brand, our message, and our ideal client. So I want to talk about kind of ways to identify that. So one thing that I did with a retailer on the phone today was we talked about, literally we named the client. I'm just going to say her name. Her name was Malia. We named Malia, and I said, okay, great. And I rapid fired some questions that I'm going to rapid fire to you. So let's talk about Malia. What does Malia do when she wakes up? Like, what's the first thing she does? Well, she goes on social media. She likes to be in the know, but she's not like the trendsetter. Okay, so tell me more about Malia. Well, what does she like? What does she do for breakfast? Well, she's probably getting her kids together for breakfast. Maybe she has 2 kids. She's getting them together for breakfast. She's preparing. I asked, what does Malia do for work? She's a cosmetologist. Okay, great. So she's preparing for the day, getting the kids off. What does she do before she gets to work? Oh, she definitely stops and gets coffee. Okay, great. Malia likes coffee. Okay, what is Malia? What's her favorite coffee? Well, she likes a skinny, non-fat latte. Okay, so great. Malia's got her skinny, non-fat latte. She's going into her salon and ready for the day. What does Malia stress over throughout the day? Or maybe what is the thing that Malia has a hard time when she goes to bed? Like, what is she worried about? Well, Malia's worried that she's afraid of failure. Okay, well, why is Malia afraid of failure? Like, do you guys see what we're doing here? We're literally going into the psychology of your ideal client and understanding where they are and how to meet them. So then I asked, okay, well, what does Malia come and buy at your store? Well, she definitely likes things that are very versatile because she lives a busy life. She wants to be able to go from work to night by switching a jacket, maybe a pair of shoes. Okay, so knowing that Malia is versatile will definitely impact how you merchandise, will definitely impact what clothing that you carry. All right, well, tell me maybe what size is Malia? Well, she's probably like a medium or a large. Okay, what does Malia like to do on a date night with her husband? Well, Malia definitely goes to this restaurant. She had an answer. This retailer had an answer for all these things, and it was awesome. And it was the first time we had done this exercise, but I loved how like quick she was. And what we did is we created the story around this ideal client, Malia. Well, Malia is 25 to 35. That's what we identified. Okay, well, what products in your store right now don't really relate to Malia? What would Malia not wear? Okay, what would Malia want 5 of? Now, for those of you who feel like, okay, well, maybe mother and daughter shop at your store, great. So name Malia and then name Malia's teenage daughter, Sarah. It doesn't mean that you're gonna now only focus on Sarah. It means that you're gonna have versatile merchandise in your store to be able to meet both of them, right? But ultimately, your core demographic, or maybe your core buyer, and this can come from pulling reports, seeing what the average age of your clients are, doing a poll. I mean, there's a lot of things that you can do. Look at your insights on your social media to see what is the age demographic of your customer who's responding, who's purchasing, who's following you on social media, and narrow that down. And by creating a story, we really come to understand who our ideal client is and who they are not. And that's going to help us in so many ways. I wanted to share this because I feel if we don't identify our client, we are going to have an unclear brand. So people aren't going to be really sure if the store is for them or not. We tend to overbuy because we're trying to buy and dabble other things, or we have inventory, what I would call inventory runoff, which is like the stuff that you have in your store that you're like, why do I have this? Like, I've gone into many boutiques who now carry candles, who carry Corksicle. I've seen so many boutiques carry Corksicle, and I'm not saying that that's bad, but maybe it's not one of their best-selling products, but they had a customer be like, I really wish you had these, or maybe they had them for a short period of time during the holiday season or something like that, and they did pretty well, but now they're carrying a large selection of them, and they're not doing very well. So if we could be clearer and identify our ideal customer even more, then we would avoid that overspend or loss of profitability by buying things that we really know aren't our demographic. Now, another thing to keep into consideration, and these are all just ideas I wanted to share to help you increase sales. If you're interested in learning more about increasing sales, I want to invite you to watch my on-demand class. It's jmclass.com. But also, when you're thinking about your ideal client, I want you to be also keep in mind that like it may not be you. So what you like and what you want to bring in the store is fine. However, maybe your ideal client is 10 years older than you, or maybe your ideal client is 10 years younger. So how you're going to make those purchasing and buying decisions isn't always you, like who you are, right? That's something that I personally experienced when I was a buyer for a store. My style at a certain age changed from another age. So the store sort of evolved because of us. Was that necessarily the right move? I think some of it absolutely, because we were adapting to an older client anyways. Well, I think what that identified was like, we're not actually in this younger demographic. We're actually in this demographic, which has a little bit more disposable income, is a little bit more of a professional. And so what we carry is going to be completely different. I want to share another story. So I was working for a women's clothing store, and that had a little bit of men's clothes. And we heard all the time from male customers as well as female customers, they wish they had a bigger selection of men's product. So we really expanded probably about 20% more into men's clothing. So really like half the store was men's, or like a third of the store was men's, and the rest, 3/4 was women's. Then we started hearing from a lot of moms, like, I wish you had cute things for kids and blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, we had this upstairs level that wasn't really being utilized. So we thought, okay, well, let's expand into children's clothes. And so we started doing this and had some success for sure, because there wasn't a lot of needs. However, what this really did in the long run was muddied the waters. Now we were going to different markets for men's, women's, and children's clothing. Or when they were happening at one point or all at once, going to Vegas or something, now we'll shoot, like we have 3 days to buy for 3 very different clients. And so it was really, really hard to manage. So over time, we really had to ask ourselves and evaluate, when women's clothing still ended up being like 80% of the sales, all this other stuff didn't matter. So I really want you to take that into consideration right now. The products that you have on your floor right now, do they match the ideal client? I want you to answer questions like, what age is your ideal customer? The gender, marital status, location, where does he or she work? What's their job title? What's their annual income? What's the level of education? Favorite place to hang out in town? What members or groups are they a part of? Who do they follow on social media? Who do they envy? Who do they want to emulate? I want you to be so clear on that ideal client, because it's going to help you not overbuy on products that aren't for your ideal client. It's going to help you so you're not buying deep versus wide, or buying too many things that are just so eclectic that you visually can't even have clarity in your store, in your location, because it's just so muddled. That's usually the scenario. When I go and I work in a boutique store, I usually see right away, like, this doesn't make sense with this. I'll give you another example. Another example would be, we carry evening dresses and casual tees. As a customer, I want you to ask yourself, would you shop for would it be clear to you that where you buy your evening dresses, maybe like, or prom dresses, let's just say like special occasion dresses, in the same place that you buy a basic tee? Probably not. That's probably not why you're going to that store. If you're a specialty store that sells occasional dresses, I expect occasional dresses. Maybe you carry a certain demographic or age, but that's what you expect. Having other merchandise in there that is super separated from the ultimate brand that you're creating, the messaging, and gets away from that ideal client, then you've just got like scattered dollars everywhere. Scattered dollars everywhere. Another example would be, I've worked with another store who does some designing, who sells a slew of different things. And it's very, very confusing in the market. So how are you going to have a competitive advantage or a differentiator when you're all things to all people? You can't. And now people are like, I don't really know what I need to go there for. You want someone to have no doubt. If you're a clothing store, women's clothing, and your demographic is 25 to 35, you want them to have no doubt that you're the boutique to shop. If you are an artisan gallery with only locally made things, you want them to know, I know exactly where to go for that. You don't want them to be like, where do I go get that corksicle bottle? I can get it at Barnes & Noble. I can get it at this boutique. I can get it at the mall. I can get it at a sporting goods store. It just doesn't make sense. And if it's not really a big portion of your sales, let it go. Let it go. And remember, I think a big thing, let me like sum it up here. A big thing is you're the boss. It doesn't matter what your customers necessarily say in the sense of they want you to carry everything. Of course they do, because it'd be convenient. But you get to make that decision for what you carry in your business. And that decision is critical. And that decision should revolve around who is your ideal client, who's the person you're targeting, your market. That's going to get clarity in how you market and do a marketing plan. That's going to get clarity on the language you use on your social media. What you do in your live videos, that's going to get some deep clarity. I do the same thing for my business. My ideal client, she's Beth. She's a retail store owner. She owns a boutique. She has 2 kids. Her husband is Dave. They love to have breakfast together as a family. On the way to work, she's definitely stopping at her favorite local coffee shop. Like, I've got the whole scenario too. I definitely want you to know how valuable this can be no matter what business you are, but especially in retail when you're buying product and you're redefining who you're really trying to sell to. If we try to expand that too much, we're going to lose sight of who we are, our brand, the clarity, and our competitive advantages.